So I don't really have anything new to add to the Vegapunk stuff that happened this week. Just because there wasn't, I mean, like, yeah, there was good stuff that happened in the chapter, and yeah, Luffy possibly fighting Lucci again is going to be interesting. Get some other stuff going on there, see what else Vegapunk comes up with. Hopefully something happens with Kuma and Bonnie in the next couple of chapters. We kind of get some more stuff that'll happen there, or Bonnie and the Kuma Seraphim, depending on how connected they are. But this, at the moment, this was a series I've been kind of working on for a little bit in regards to getting stuff ready for it. And with everything that's going on and the fact that this is the final saga, I kind of wanted to go through the different animal allies that the Straw Hats have, or animal friends that the Straw Hats have. Chopper not included because he's part of the crew. But I was going to go through some of the different animals and talk about, kind of their bond with the Straw Hats in regards to how that goes, but also their possibility of how they could be an effective tool or an effective, well, not a tool in regards to the fact that, oh, they're just an object to be used, but like a tool to be able to use to help them in regards to either with, the final war, or, it gets Blackbeard or the Marines or whatever the heck happens in regards to that. And I kind of went over these a little bit when I talked about like the Straw Hat reunion videos, and I will get back into those at some point in time once we get a little bit further away from Wano. I'll probably talk about some of the other stuff in the New World. But this one is going to be talking about like the animal allies that the Straw Hats made between the East Blue all the way up through Alabasta. And then I'll have another one that's Skypiea all the way up through when they're separated. And then from like the New World on and stuff like that, from when they're reunited onward. And so I pulled out an animal. I have a wildlife safari t-shirt because we have a safari not too far from where I live. It's just like local animals and animals that are native to Nebraska: deer, elk, antelope, bison, wolves. They have at least one black bear. I don't know if it's a black bear or a grizzly bear, but it's a bear, and I've seen it, and I don't want to make it angry. And stuff like that. That's like between Lincoln and Omaha, and it's just a nice place to stop. You drive through, and you try not to, you make sure that the buffalo don't try to attack your car. So animal allies. So kind of the first one that's on the list is Chow Chow in Orange Town, because Chow Chow is a good boy. Obviously Chow Chow is based off of Hachiko and such. That's from, the very loyal dog and everything. Chow Chow is obviously based off of that. We see Chow Chow throughout the Orange Town arc and everything. He bites Luffy at various points in time. He ends up, he bites, I think he bites, what was the animal tamer's name from Richie? I don't remember. Was Richie the lion? I don't remember. It's the animal tamer guy from Buggy's crew. The one that is now very fat because him and his lion have done nothing but eat for the past 2 years. And we see Chow Chow there, and we know that Luffy and Chow Chow kind of had like a bit of an animosity, but then Luffy understands what's going on because Boodle kind of explains to Luffy what's going on. Also, looking back in the story and kind of like rereading some of those chapters or rewatching some of those episodes, you kind of see Luffy seem to understand Chow Chow a bit more. Also, in other flashbacks that we got with like the Uta stuff that came out, you see Luffy like talking to a monkey, and like the monkey seems to understand him. So, is this a reference to the voice of all things? Like, was this set up way back in Orange Town that Luffy has the voice of all things because he kind of seemed to understand Chow Chow? And we also have the moment where like Luffy sits down next to Chow Chow and like just kind of like, I don't remember what exactly happens. I don't think they have a conversation, but like he just sits down next to Chow Chow, and I guess maybe they talk a little bit. Now obviously Orange Town, we haven't gotten a huge amount of since everything else has happened. We've gotten updates in like Kokoyashi Village and stuff like that, but we do know with Orange Town that Luffy left a bunch of the money that Nami had stolen from Buggy because it had originally come from the town, so that way, Boodle and the rest of the town could rebuild. And of course, this results in, of course, Chow Chow being, of course, able to, have the new pet store and everything. And, Boodle and Chow Chow probably still keep up on the antics of the Straw Hats whenever they pop into the newspaper. I don't necessarily think Boodle and Chow Chow are going to show up during the final arc beyond like maybe we get like a flash forward of them in like the epilogue or something like that. But I don't know, maybe they'll have like a Luffy-based dog treat or something like that, like a Straw Hat-based dog chew or something like that. That would be funny. Although Nami would probably want some form of royalty for that. But yeah. Moving on, there's not really too many other allies we get within the East Blue. Chow Chow was kind of it, because there's not really, I mean, like, yeah, you have like Gaimon and the Island of Rare Animals. But again, just like with Chow Chow, I don't particularly see Gaimon and, well, Garfunkel, who's his girlfriend, wife, I don't remember. Are they married? I don't remember. But Garfunkel and then all of the animals, I don't particularly see them showing up at, you know, during the war. Same thing with, you know, I don't see Boodle and Chow Chow showing up in the war, or anything like that. Although Chow Chow was voted one of the most popular characters in One Piece, which is quite understandable because he is a very good boy and a very loyal boy. But yeah, there's not really too much else there in the East Blue. Then we get into the Grand Line. And obviously in the Grand Line, the first thing that you kind of tend to meet is Laboon. And obviously given the past that not only the Straw Hats have with Laboon, we see this, Laboon, giant island whale, covered in scars, likes to bash its head against the Red Line. Initially, what we kind of think, or at least kind of what we've heard from Crocus and stuff like that, is that, oh, well, Laboon does that because he kind of thinks the Red Line took his friends away from him, and he thinks that if he can knock it down, he can get to them sooner. Technically, he's not wrong. But it's also, we find out, of course, later on that all these other island whales have all of these scars on them from, you know, probably bashing themselves against the Red Line as well, because it's probably not a natural occurrence, but that's been gone over many, many times. But with Laboon, obviously, it's like the Straw Hats have this bond with him because Luffy kind of, well, first of all, he like gets into a fight with the whale, which is just like, oh god, Luffy, stop fighting the animals. And then he ends up, of course, you know, making the whale agree, you know, if you stop bashing your head against the wall, I'll come back and I'll fight you. But you have to have, like, the straw hat on you. So he, like, paints the very bad rendition of the straw hat on the whale after he broke off the mast from the Mary and whacked Laboon with it. Which, of course, caused not a lot of happiness from Usopp and Nami at the time. So we see that. And with Laboon, I'm kind of hoping that... I mean, I don't necessarily, I mean, like, Crocus and Laboon showing back up at some point in time would make sense. Obviously, we're going to end up having the moment where Brook is reunited with Laboon. That's the other thing that ties the Straw Hats to Laboon is Brook. And one of the reasons why Brook went with them in the first place after, you know, Thriller Bark and everything, is I said, oh yeah, we know about Laboon. It is kind of funny that, like, the first two Straw Hats that actually hear about Laboon from Brook are Robin and Frankie. And they've never met Laboon. They have no idea who Laboon is. Chopper may not even know who Laboon is at this point in time. It's just the 5 original crew members that know who Laboon is. And Vivi. But Vivi is not there. Because, well, at that point in time, Vivi was safe on her home. Safe on Alabasta at that point in time. But not so much now. But we'll get to that. But, you know, if Laboon and Crocus showed back up again... when, you know, later on during either, like, the final war, maybe this is when we get Scopper Gabon showing back up again, like, Scopper Gabon showed up and, like, Rayleigh showed up and just like, hey, Crocus, we're getting the band back together again. Crocus, I'll bring my whale. I mean, like, I could see that happening. Get them back together, have, you know, like, maybe have Laboon help with, like, transport of some kind. I guess maybe the other island whales would be willing to help them, possibly. So that would be a possibility. Not really. I mean, like, Laboon definitely would help. Other island whales, possibly. That just depends. Also, it'd be nice for Laboon to be able to, like, be reunited with, like, his pod if they ever find them. But yes, definitely Laboon and Brook being united, of course. But, yeah, I just have this image of, like, final battle happens, and like Rayleigh, Crocus, Scopper, Shocky, and maybe a bunch of the Amazon Lily people or the Amazon Lily warriors on, the Perfume Yuba, like showing up at like Laugh Tale or wherever the final battle ends up being. If it's on Laugh Tale, if it's at Marie's Walk, because they would definitely, because the Boa sisters would definitely have some things to say to the Celestial Dragons if they showed up at Marie's Walk. If the Boa sisters showed there, like all of them showing up. And I guess maybe any other members of the Roger crew that might still be around, but most of them haven't really interacted with the Straw Hats. Crocus and Rayleigh, yes, and they could probably explain to Scopper. Maybe Scopper started reading about them in the paper or saw Luffy's hat and maybe figured, this must be the kid that Shanks gave it to. Also, there's the possibility that, like, Scopper has run into Shanks at some point in time, and, like, he's asked, hey, what'd you do with our captain's hat? Well, I gave it to this kid in the East Blue, and he also ate this devil fruit that, what's the Nika no Mi, the one that you guys told me about after you guys got back from Laugh Tale? Yeah, this kid ate it. Oh, okay. There's that concept. But yeah, I would like Laboon to show back up again and like have like a big, be part of like this big battle or something like that, or help with that. Or, if the red line does come crumbling down, like if it's like, if it does result in, like, Luffy having to be part of the crumbling of the red line, like, if it's, like, Luffy bashing it and, like, all these other island whales bashing it in time with, like, whatever thing else happens that can destroy the red line. Like, if Laboon, like, definitely get, like, a good panel of, like, Laboon being one of the, like, the last whale to, like, bash into the wall and, like, cause it to crumble. That would be a good way of doing that. Come full circle in that regard. Moving on to one that is a little bit more of like an out there possibility, but I do kind of think that this would happen. And those are the Lopins that are on Drum Island. The giant, the giant bunnies, because bunny girl. Bunnies all over the place. I still need to get my Christmas decorations up. That might happen soon. I don't know. We haven't put our decorations up yet, so I haven't put them up in here yet. But Drum Island, Christmas themed. Well, chopper, reindeer, sleigh that looks like it's flying at times. But so the Lopins are these very giant, ill-tempered, bunnies that are very savage that live on, that live near and around the Drum Rockies on Drum Island. And we know that Luffy and Sanji have to get past them when they're on their way up to the castle, so that way they can get Nami medical attention from Kureha. We know that there ends up being a skirmish that Luffy ends up fighting against them. And during this time frame, we also see that there's an avalanche that happens, and it buries both Sanji and the leader. And then, of course, Luffy digs out Sanji and everything after him and Nami, he jumps out of the way with Nami. And then, he digs up Sanji and takes him out. And then what also ends up happening is he sees this little Lopin trying to dig out this bigger Lopin. And the little Lopin, like, growls at Luffy and everything. And Luffy just comes over and he picks up the big Lopin, like, he picks up its arm and pulls it out of the snow and then puts it down. And, like, the little Lopin is just, like, blown away by this because, like, from what we understand, the Lopins and the humans on the island don't always get along with each other. I'm sure there's some cases where, like, something similar to this has happened. Like, if this happened and, like, Dalton was around, then Dalton would most likely definitely be like, oh, well, I better pull the, help get the Lopin out of the snow or everything like that. That seems like something that Dalton would do. That falls under his umbrella of, Dalton would do that. That falls under his personality. And, so Luffy saves the big Lopin, and then when Luffy and, Luffy now carrying both Sanji and Nami are going up the mountain, or going near the mountain again, that's when Wapol shows up. Or during that time frame is when Wapol shows up, and a bunch of the Lopins also show up, and they end up fighting against Wapol, because we see, like, the big Lopin, that was, like, the one that Luffy saved from the snow, and then it has, like, a little baby Lopin on its back, and the baby Lopin, like, waves at Luffy and his group, and Luffy recognizes it. And then that Lopin and the rest of the bunch of the other herd, I don't remember what the group of Lopins was called, but the rest of the herd of Lopins end up, kind of acting as, like, a stopgap measure to, like, deal with you know, they act as kind of just like bodyguards to a little bit. They like kind of deal with Wapol for a little while and everything, so that way Luffy can get up up to Drum Castle and everything. Wapol unfortunately does end up overpowering them with his devil fruit abilities and with Curry Marimo or whatever the heck their names are. Chess Curry Marimo, I don't remember them. The annoying ones that get combined and should have never existed in the first place. Those ones. They get, once, Wapol and them take care of the Loppins, are kind of just like kind of done for a little while. But we know that the Loppins end up being okay because, we know that several of them recover enough to see when Kureha, lets off the Sakura petal, blizzard that happens on the island when Chopper is leaving and everything. So we see that. And then when we kind of time skip ahead, we see several instances where the Loppins several of the Loppins have actually gone to, work with Dalton. Dalton made peace with the Loppins, along with the rest of the people of Drum Island, and now they interact much better with the new Sakura Kingdom. They're able to work much better. We also see that several of the Loppins end up actually become part of the kingdom's militia, and several of them become a part of like Kureha and Dalton's like personal guard, because we see at least one of the Loppins at the reverie with Dalton and Kureha. We also see them just like in the background at times whenever we get like a flash update in update of the Sakura Kingdom whenever we get those, which, considering that Luffy now has a new bounty, and probably pretty soon whenever we get the next cover page arc, or whenever we get like this next update again in regards to around the world of people finding out about Luffy with his new bounty and the new form, we may see the Sakura Kingdom again. We might see the Loppins then. Also, given the fact that, Chopper comes from Drum Island, he's basically raised by Kureha, and, him and Dalton have a much better relationship than they did initially and everything. I would like to think that, if the Drum Island people show up, if the Sakura Kingdom people show up, with like Kureha leading the Ishin 20, the Isho 20, or whatever they're called, leading them, all the doctors and everything, that the Loppins show up and like they act as bodyguards for the doctors. And like if the doctors are there like during the final battle or whatever, like Chopper can lead the doctors. And, like maybe have like Marco there as well, just as like another doctor to help out or everything like that with like their medical knowledge and everything. But like having Chopper be the one to lead these doctors and have it be the, like the Loppins are helping out as like keeping the doctors safe while the doctors are dealing with any of the wounded and everything like that are unfortunately going to definitely happen during the time frame, along with like Miyagi and Tristan from the Minx and like any other doctors and stuff like that they have, and like Crocus and everything. Like that would be like a very good way of doing that, like having them there, and having the Loppins act as like ones that are helping to protect the doctors and the nurses while they're taking care of all of these injured people, and such. And the thing is, and side note about this, because we saw Chopper definitely still exude this when they were on Wano and everything like that, when he made the antidote for the Isoni virus, we definitely see that he is also going to help heal, like, if an enemy gets injured. Because we see that because he helps a bunch of the, a bunch of the waiters and pleasures and, such that all get infected by Queen's, Isoni virus. Chopper helps them regardless of whether or not they're on his side. And that definitely falls under Chopper's purview of, like, someone is hurt, I am going to help them. That type of a thing. Because, Hippocratic Oath and everything. And, so hopefully we'll see the hopefully see the Loppins show up again there. Also, I just like the buddies showing up because that's fun. Have them be led into battle by Carrot. That'd be funny. That'd be good. Get our snow bunnies. Next up, we have a bunch of the different animals that were on Alabasta. Now, obviously, we have the super spot-billed duck, Karu, and the super spot-billed duck troops or squadrons or whatever you want to call them, that are all the other spotted-billed ducks that are part of that troop that work for the Alabasta royal family. Obviously, we meet Karu back on Whiskey Peak and everything with Vivi. And then, of course, he travels with the Straw Hats. So he's already set up as, like, him as an ally of the Straw Hats is already there. And then via Karu and also via, Vivi being the Princess of Alabasta, technically the Queen of Alabasta at this point in time, considering that Cobra is dead, unfortunately. If if the Straw Hats, if the Straw Hats find Vivi, hopefully Karu is with her. Again, could be on Elbath. I know that that's a theory going around. She could be somewhere else. It all depends on what's going on. She could have just been captured. We're not sure. But what we of course know is that of course Karu would definitely help them, because him and Usopp got along great. So hopefully him and Karu would be able, Karu would be happy to help. And then of course the rest of the super spot build duck troops, the squadron, they would be happy to help as well. They're probably currently on Alabasta. We know that Karu was at Reverie with Vivi, and the rest of them are probably on Alabasta. Hopefully over the last 2 years, all of them have gotten stronger, just doing more training and everything. Hopefully they've gotten stronger and stuff. And we know that, I think it was that they were like the fastest animals in Alabasta. I know that there were like different types of like the banana wani and like stuff like that, but like the banana wani definitely weren't allies of the Straw Hats. And I don't remember if there was like something else that was like a really fast thing in the in Alabasta, but I think like they said the spot build ducks were like the fastest ones. Because we see like Karu run across the desert to the capital, to Alabarna, and deliver a message, and then I think he comes back and tries to help again. And like, because he brings back the spot build duck squadron, and then they help with like getting Vivi into the city and everything under the disguises, and such. So like all of them helping out, and like they're really fast, so they would be really good at like helping deliver messages. Because I mean, like, yeah, there's the Denten Mushi that they can use for like communication and stuff like that, but if you have to run supplies around in certain areas, having the ducks do that would be very helpful. Those would be a good way of doing that. Also, they're, really good with dealing with heat. I don't know exactly how well they would do with cold. We saw Karu on Drum Island, but he didn't do very much on Drum Island, I don't think. I don't remember if he was badly affected by the cold or not, but he could be like the opposite of Chopper, where it's like, the ducks are fine in the heat, and Chopper is terrible in the heat. But Chopper loves the cold, but the ducks aren't good at the cold, because, ducks migrate south for the winter. Or depending on what area of the world you're in, north. But so like the spot build ducks, them being allies would make perfect sense. And then we have a few other animals that are on Alabasta that could be, useful allies down the line. We have the Kung Fu dugongs that I just wanted to throw on here because they're adorable, and I love dugongs. I like Dugong the Pokemon too. Hey! Stop digging on the bed. My animal ally. No dig. And, so we have the Kung Fu dugongs. We see these kind of partway through Alabasta. They end up actually attacking Usopp because they live on like the Alabasta coast. They attack Usopp when like the Straw Hats arrive there, and then like Luffy then fights them to like get revenge for the fact that they fought Usopp. He like fights their leader and defeats their leader, and then like the dugongs then become like Luffy's disciples, which is just funny. And the dugongs are just like, we will follow Luffy. Like, he just has like this army of tiny dugongs that will like happily fight for him. And we know that they protect the Mary while the Straw Hats are in Alabasta, and then they keep it safe until Mr. 2 shows up and takes the ship, and then he gives the ship back to the Straw Hats, obviously, because we saw that. Oh, Bong play. And so we see a lot of that. But with the dugongs, we don't get much else. We see them again during the kind of the Garatsu's, new job arc or whatever it's called that they had, where we see them with Vivi at like the hot springs. We see some of them in the hot springs there. And I know that in some of the cover pages, we've seen Vivi like with some of the dugong around her, because it'd be like, oh, this is a girl that's the friend of our, the friend of the guy that defeated us, our leader. And, so we see that. So I would think that the dugongs would be fine to help, want to help the Straw Hats. Also, and this is complete filler, but I did want to throw it in. There is the moment. There's like when the Straw Hats are on their way between Punk Hazard and Alabasta, or not Alabasta. That'd be a different way. Between Punk Hazard and Dressrosa, there's similar arcs. Between Punk Hazard and Dressrosa, we have there's like this little like 2-episode mini filler thing that they do where Luffy and Law and Chopper get like kidnapped by this weird guy that can make like collars, and like his devil fruit gives, it's like the pet fruit or whatever. You can make collars and you have to obey him if you're wearing the collar. And we see him and he puts collars on all of them, but also one of the Kung Fu Dugongs are there, the one that was the leader. And it like started its own little animal pirate crew, which I find adorable. But there's not really anything else there. I know that's complete and utter filler, but it's still adorable. There's not too much else. We see them a little bit in the palace after the time skip. But there's not really anything else that we see with the Dugongs that's canon. So if they show back up again, that'd be nice. I would like them to show back up again. They would probably be good with dealing some of like the Rift Raft and stuff like that. Like they can team up with like a bunch of the miscellaneous sailors and stuff like that are going to be coming from like Orlumbus's crew or something like that. They can like pair up with them and like help fighting with that. That'd be fine. Not really too much else that goes there. Next up, we have the Yasa Camel is what they're called. So that is Matsuge or Eyelash. I know that. I'm sorry. I started on the 4Kids stuff. I'm sorry. Camel's name is Eyelash in my opinion, but that's because Matsuge just means eyelash in Japanese. So we have Matsuge. I'm going to mispronounce it. I apologize. Who is, of course, the camel. And this is the camel that, of course, the very perverted camel that, Chopper ends up making friends with when they're in, they're not in Yuba at that point in time, but where they make friends with him at one point in time, and such. And, Nami kind of nicknames him Eyelash and stuff like that. And he's also the pervy camel and stuff like that because he likes women and everything, because like he likes Nami and Vivi. And him and Chopper like actually end up they help find the other one that I'm going to talk about in a minute, Scissors, the crab, who end up they help the Straw Hats and everything. And the camel, Matsuge, actually ends up going into Alabasta with them, ends up getting paired up with Usopp as part of the distraction against Baroque works and such. We see that Matsuge ends up helping a lot against that stuff, or at least ends up helping with like getting them transported different places and stuff like that, so that's good. There's not too much else that we see with him. He does pop up later on. We know that in like some of the cover pages that I guess he's been like, I don't know, upgraded or something like that, where he is like part of Vivi's guard, walking around with Karu and everything. So he's like, he's been raised up in his status and such, so it's like that would be nice there. We see him in like the Gadatsu's accidental blue sea life arc cover page series, so we see that. There's not too much else that we see there with him. And then the last one that I did want to point out with this one that's part of the East Blue into Alabasta setup is, and I slightly mentioned in Hasami or Scissors, the moving crab, because crab. This giant crustacean that just lives in the deserts of Alabasta, and it's used for like transporting and everything like that. And it ends up taking the Straw Hats from Rain Base all the way to Alabasta is where he takes them. And he's of course also pervy. That's why him and the camel get along. And when Nami, flashes him and everything, it makes him go faster and everything in her dancer uniform or dancer outfit. And he runs faster to get them to Alabasta faster, because why not? So we have that. He does pop up in the Blue Sea, Gadatsu's Blue Sea Adventure. He helps us like transport between the hot springs and other places and everything. And we don't really see too much else of him. But he would be good for helping with transport if like the straw, he comes maybe. I don't know if he'd be good with traveling on water. The camel would be okay. Matsuge would end up being okay with like getting in the, being on the boat and like sailing with them and everything to like somewhere else or whatever. And I'm sure he's worried about Vivi at this point in time. Don't know so much about the crab, but maybe he might be. So them showing up and helping with that type of stuff, with like transport, moving of supplies, different things like that would be good. Moving several large numbers of people at the same time would be good. I just, things that pop into my head when I'm like looking through different One Piece things, and I'm like, well, that would be good for that. That'd be good there. But that's what I have for this one. If I'm sure I possibly missed an animal ally that the Straw Hats made at some point in this section of it. Again, I'm going to do Skypiea all the way up through the separation will be the next one. And then the one after that is going to be like stuff like with Fishman Island and Into the New World. Because there's not as many going into there, but there's like more, there's like other groups in those areas that I do want to talk about, like how they can be useful to the Straw Hats, either because they will possibly show up with other allies of the Straw Hats, or they might just show up anyway, or like we'll probably never see them again except in cover pages, which is probably what's going to happen with a lot of these. But I can dream. This is a possibility of how they could be used, how they could be utilized if the Straw Hats wanted to. But that's what we have. So I thank you for watching. I hope you have a nice rest of your day. Happy holiday season to everyone. So bye.